So a new Hearthstone expansion was revealed, and then it was really revealed. Every single card unfortunately showing up in the Hearthstone client today. And that said, we're not going to talk about all the cards. We're going to talk about the cards that are officially revealed, the ones where we have the full artwork, and that way we can still take our time enjoying these over the next probably couple weeks, and we can also respect any other content creators who might be doing some fun card reveals and stuff. Probably some people already put some work into those, so we're gonna stick to the officially finally revealed cards. That said, we have some pretty crazy ones already to talk about, as you can see behind me, and this expansion has me pretty hyped. I'm not gonna lie, like, this is the first theme since Titans that I've really been interested in. They've tended a little goofy for my taste lately, but this is like epic and cool and has some like dark elements, and I just love space cosmic stuff. So this is a really cool expansion theme. I have not played Hearthstone at all since the mini set. I made that like one video, I think, of the mini set, maybe two. That said, I still have my 11-star bonus. That was enough in September to hit legend and keep my 11-star bonus. So when we get back into things, maybe tonight, still going to climb really fast, which is nice. I'm keeping that legend and 11-star bonus streak alive since I think April. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into these cards, because I know you guys want to talk about them and hear all the details. Even if you've already seen them all, you're going to learn a lot by listening to me yap for the next 30 minutes or so. And yeah, the Mad Lads did it. They printed 100 freaking mana card, which is so cool and epic and amazing. They did not fix the kerning on the 100 here. A little bit of an awkward space there. I always have to fix that. I know how annoying that one is next to stuff. You see it here too, but the ones and the zeros make it really dramatic. Anyway, the Ceaseless Expanse is a 15/15, and it costs one less for each time a card was drawn, played, or destroyed. And then has a battle cry, destroy all other minions. So, you know, this is a big old board clear that deposits a 15/15. Like, we know that's good, right? Like, that's insane. That's a good 10 mana play, and it's certainly a good 0 mana play if you can get it all the way down to 0. But 100 is a really big number, and that's going to take a lot of work. Now, you know, it's going to happen very naturally. Cards are always getting drawn. Cards are always getting played. Cards are always getting destroyed. Do note too that it does say cards get destroyed, so you know, even things like the TNTs destroying cards in your deck, or Warlock destroying cards in their deck, or cards in hand getting destroyed, or even weapons getting destroyed. I think locations getting destroyed should count. All of those will increment for the Ceaseless Expanses count here. And then I think when cards are drawn, there's probably some ways to cheese that too, with stuff like cast when drawn, because you draw the cast when drawn card and that draws you another one. That could be a way to like cycle through multiple cards. So you could probably cheese this down, but again, 100 is a really big number, and a lot of Hearthstone games end on turn 6, on turn 7, and although, you know, this might be a card you have to see in practice to really understand how quickly it goes down, I have a feeling there will be many times this is stuck in hand and you're dead, and this thing costs like 67 or something. You know what I mean? Like, it just costs way too much. So I think it is going to demand like greedier decks with like defensive game plans, maybe even a meta that is greedier and more defensive, which lately in Hearthstone just does not exist all that often. So this might be really hard to run. I hope I'm surprised a little bit here, and this can, you know, get to a stage where it's playable. That said, you don't want it getting too good too fast either. You don't want this coming down on like turn 7 for 0 mana and just completely blowing a game out, right? That's another problem. So where is that fine line? And if they're gonna err on any side here, you're gonna err on the cautious side, probably, from a design standpoint with this one. Also, 100 is just a, you know, clean number. It's the odds that 100 is actually where this is balanced to be in that sweet spot is silly, right? Like, it might really need to be like 71 mana, and that's like the perfect number for the Ceaseless Expanse, but you choose the cool epic number instead, which probably to me gives me a couple reasons to think this card is gonna feel pretty slow, pretty restricted in its meta, and not be good. That said, wild format needs to keep an eye on Holy Wrath, because Holy Wrath and 100 mana card sounds hilarious and ridiculous, and I don't know what that means, but we don't talk about wild cards because I can't keep up with wild. So wild, deal with Holy Wrath. For those of us in standard, I think this is too slow, but maybe a couple, you know, really greedy control decks do make space for this one. So moving on here, we have Valen, Leader of the Exiled, and you'll notice he's a Draenei, because Draenei is now a minion type in Hearthstone, which is pretty cool. It seems like their effect is going to be like kind of like setting up what your next Draenei does. You know, each of these minion types have kind of a theme, of course. That's theirs. And with Velen, he's a 7-mana, 7/7 neutral. Taunt and Death Rattle trigger the battle cries and death rattles of all other Draenei you played this game, which is a pretty big effect. Of course, that can just pop off for a million things. We don't officially know how many like death rattles and battle cries are gonna work right now for Velen, but minion types are permanent. They're gonna be around forever. That means, you know, even if he doesn't hit that critical mass of good stuff that happens prior to him in this set, it's still gonna come down the road, right? Like there is gonna be a point where this card is just good enough that you slam him and crazy things are going to happen, and you're going to get a lot of upside on like the next card you play. Some immediate things are going to happen. You're going to generate value. You're probably going to generate board, and he's just going to feel absolutely worth it. The fact that, you know, he's 7 mana, that's a little slow, but he does have taunt, which helps. Like your opponent's kind of forced to interact with this in many matchups. Obviously, is always, you know, susceptible to silence and so on, but that's never really held cards like this back. So I do think Velen will eventually be a very powerful, very good deck-defining sort of card, because somebody's going to figure out something with Draenei, and I have a feeling it's probably going to be in this set, because they want Draenei to be successful the set they launch, but also a card to bank for later, because more and more Draenei will get added. Eventually a great one will hit, and because this is a neutral, it's going to be able to access any class and land and be great. So real quick, just to give an example of what a Draenei might look like, this is the 1-cost Starlight Wanderer. It's a 2/1 Draenei. Battlecry, the next Draenei you play gains +2/+1, which, you know, okay, my Velen's a little bigger, but also, you know, this is going to reactivate on that Battlecry. The next card, next Draenei you play after Velen is going to be nuts, and there's going to be, this is just a tiny, meager example, but you can imagine these kind of building up over the course of a game through the first 6 turns, and then Velen's a bomb that pops off. This card itself also, like, honestly not a bad 2/1 to start advancing an aggressive Draenei board, get a good 2-drop. Little extra health can really help that survivability, and when that's attached to extra attack, that can hit people really hard and feel pretty good. So our next mechanic to talk about here is Starships, and this one's a little hard to explain, but basically if you take a look at the dimensional core here, you'll read the text Starship piece, this new keyword. Whenever you have a Starship piece die on board, you're going to start assembling your Starship. And that's going to be this dormant style little minion puck thing on board. And each Starship piece that dies is going to be kind of assembled together into an eventual Starship minion that you can spend 5 mana at any stage to launch your Starship. So to explain this, you play Dimensional Core, it dies. Your Starship pops up on board. Your Starship now has Divine Shield and 3/2 in stats. Now you play the Arcanite Defense Crystal, another Starship piece. It dies. Your Starship gains another 3/4, making it a 6/6. It still has Divine Shield, and it now also has Taunt and Death Rattle, gain 6 armor. So it's gaining the stats and the texts of all of the Starship pieces that die. So at that point, you've played a turn 3, a turn 4. If you want to spend your turn 5 summoning your Starship, you can for 5 mana. You're going to summon a 6/6, Taunt, Divine Shield, Death Rattle, gain 6 armor, which is admittedly a pretty good 5-cost minion. And at that point, your Starship resets. And if you want another Starship, you need to start assembling more pieces. It's already launched. It's out. It doesn't like stay there forever. You can just keep hitting it for 5 mana, but you can make a new one. Alternatively, you could wait and play another Dimensional Core and another Arcanite Defense Crystal and add another 6/6 in stats. I can totally talk. And make it even bigger. And there are going to be more Starship pieces, and you could just make this like crazy enormous Starship that does absolutely crazy things, and then wait till turn 10 or whatever and summon like the most busted Starship ever. So it's going to be this balance of like finding the right time. Maybe you got a gap in your curve. Maybe you just need something defensive right now, and working through all that. And it looks like 6 classes are going to have like dedicated Starship support, but you can also see there are neutral stuff here too. So, you know, you're going to have a neutral set. Here is an example of a Druid Starship piece. After you cast an arcane spell, recast it. So that will go on your Starship, and here is the Druid Starship. I think this is just flavor. I think they're all functionally the same, but they look a little different. So that's Starship Pieces. It's pretty cool. You know, it requires a lot of setup, but you are, you know, getting what look to be pretty good minions. Like, this is a nice defensive tool, like a little speed bump body on a 3/4 with 6 armor gain. That's not bad at all. And when you get that back again so efficiently, you know, you're getting 7 mana worth of stuff on a Starship for only 2 cards. You can start to see how that can snowball over the course of a game. So these both look pretty solid. You're not like pumped necessarily to play a 3 mana 3/2 Divine Shield, but in pursuit of getting a good Starship, you might be. Like, that feels pretty good. And I think this card actually looks really good on its own. Like, this is a great piece to put in your Starship. Just giving it taunt and that nice death rattle is definitely going to add up and stack up like crazy. So that looks good. Now moving over to the Druid stuff, the Starlight Reactor we read, it's a 3 mana 3/3. This also just seems like a really good effect, and it might be an effect that's hard to use, you know, like on turn 3, because you know, just play this down, you're kind of just feeding into your Starship and you're starting to assemble it, because remember, it doesn't exist on board until one of these dies, and there are going to be cards that like care about that. It seems like, you know, like, oh, I need to have the Starship on board in order to make a play, because if you look at this, like, if you're building a Starship, which means, you know, you need one of these to go down before you play your Exarch Othar. And, you know, he's going to give you some arcane spells to use with your Starlight Reactor, which then, again, remember, you can also use with your Starship. So getting multiple turns of this is possible. You can do it, you know, as you play the first half of this body and then again on your Starship. Alternatively, just kind of bank this up. You know, play it on 3. You don't care if anything happens now. I'm just saving that for later, banking it in the Starship so I can pop off later, you know. So suddenly I have a turn 3 play. Into the turn 4 Exarch Othar. I got some awesome arcane spells in hand. Then I summon my Starship on 5. Hopefully those arcane spells are free because their cost has been reduced, and then I'm popping off on turn 5, right? So a very, again, natural curve. We've had a couple like 3/4/5, 3/4/5. That's a different card, but here again is an arcane spell, for instance, that might go in the pool. The Distress Signal. This is summoning some stuff, refreshing some crystals, and it might only cost 2 mana. So it could, in essence, be kind of free. Maybe not a turn 5 play, but you can see how all this starts to add up into some pretty crazy stuff. And of course, Druid gets more cost discounts. So this again looks really good, and recasting arcane spells can just be obviously nuts. We already know Distress Signal looks pretty good. Just get even more stuff, even more mana refresh. That's busted. This card also just looks good in kind of a vacuum. Like, you obviously have to have a Starship, but a 4 mana 3/3 that gives you 3 things and reduces a total cost of 6. That's just great. Like, it doesn't necessarily need like the Starlight Reactor to pay it off. That's just probably a good play in and of itself. So it is going to demand that Starship synergy, but you don't have to necessarily go crazy with Starship support. You just need to make sure it's there so that you can play your Exarch Othar and get stuff. The fact that the 3 different arcane spells is probably good. But, you know, sometimes it might be nice to just get the best ones 3 times. But, you know, you get a mix of things, maybe something reactive, proactive, a threat, a reactive control card, whatever it is. You know, you might get a different mix of all the different stuff. So again, I think both of these look great. These cards are good independently and certainly play really nicely with the Starship as well. The Distress Signal also looks like a pretty nice tool. Like, you know, on turn 4 in a pinch, is this the best card ever? Probably not. But when you start to consider synergies, late game plays, recasting this, it looks pretty nice, right? Just get a couple bodies and do some fun stuff with refreshes. So this also looks like a solid tool for Druid. Again, mana cheat, no surprise. So moving on to a neutral legendary. This one's already in the game right now. This is one of the card that we got like for the pre-release or whatever, or the, you know, the announcement release, whatever. Nexus Prince Shafar, a 3 mana 3/3 with Spell Burst, and give a minion in your hand +3/+3, and this Spell Burst. So basically, you can kind of chain together a bunch of little extra bonus minion buffs. Oh, and also this signals the return of Spell Burst. That's going to be a keyword that's showing back up. I don't think it's intended to be like a core set keyword, but just for this expansion, we're revisiting Spell Burst. I haven't actually looked to see if anybody's having success with this card in the last like 3 or 4 hours since it came out, but I don't think this one's going to feel very good. It's like, it just demands a mix of spells and minions that I think is going to be hard to achieve. Obviously, there are lots of like little cheap spells, and we've had the drinks from last set as well, where you can get a lot of cheap spells and, you know, always kind of have extra ones in hand. which help a little bit, but decks that are doing that tend to have more like decisive win conditions and payoffs for all those little spells than just like a delayed 3/3 buff on a single minion. And like chaining together a little 3/3 buff in the mix of all these little spells, I don't know that it's going to add up to do enough. You know, like obviously there are some cards you like to stick around on board. I'm thinking of like Linessa and Paladin. You know, it has this upside and repeat spells, and like it having extra health helps. It's not a downside by any means, but is it hard to weave this in? Is it hard to find those moments? And does it still get removed anyway? Like, does a, you know, 8 health Linessa, or is it 9 if you give it +3/+3? She a 2/5 or a 2/6? I can't remember. Anyway, is that really going to make enough difference? Will some hard removal still solve the problem, or will you just would have won anyway because you're popping off all at once instead of kind of setting up this +3/+3 over time? It's incremental stat value, but compared to like the dumps of stat buffs we see in things like Hand Paladin, I just don't think this goes fast enough. And it demands a weird balance between spells and minions that most decks probably aren't all that happy to achieve. So I think this one's going to feel clunkier than good. Now, this card is so sick, dude. I love the flavor of this card. It is this just freaking giant demon. He is Zortoth, Breaker of Stars. He's literally holding stars, I guess. He's a 6 mana 5/5. Battlecry, add 2 stars to both sides of your hand. When they collide, deal 5 damage to all enemies. And it's a little confusing because if you read these like star tokens, the Star of Origination and the Star of Conclusion, you might think he's dealing 15 damage because like each of them mentioned dealing 5. That's not how it works. It's a little bit confusing, but it's just one instance of 5 to all enemies. So if you play this like on an empty hand, for instance, this is a 6 mana 5/5 that's going to deal 5 to all enemies, which is really good, by the way. Like, let's not sleep on that. That's a board clear and some face damage as well. Like in an aggressive Demon Hunter deck where this is your top end card, there will be instances that just swings the board so hard, stabilizes against another like aggro deck while you're still pushing damage, still threatening lethal. That's going to feel like a really rewarding sort of play. In something like a, you know, slower control deck, it might be really hard to get to the point where this pays off, and it's just not going to be worth it. So although it could serve as a board clear, it's like, man, I got too many things in hand. It's going to take me forever to actually get all these played out, you know, and I can't spend 6 mana and then pay this off like 6 turns from now after I've played all the stuff in the middle, right? So I do think rather limited in its use cases, but I do think just swingy enough and still lethal presenting enough that a faster deck might be okay. Just playing this on 6, maybe reaping the benefits immediately, frankly, if they have an empty hand, or even just waiting a turn or 2, it might still be worth it because it's going to give you that reach and it's going to help you push through like taunts, push through any minions that might be a problem at all. So I think that's a pretty big effect for 6 mana. It's just a question, how quickly does it happen? How reliably does it happen quickly? And is there a deck that can find the right balance there where it's like, I need to go fast, I need to kill people, I need it, you know, I'm going to play cards out, but is this going to still land in a weird spot where I can't spend 6 and wait like 2 turns? It's got to happen now. Might be hard to achieve sometimes, but I have hopes because this is just a big board clear and big damage at the end of the day. So next up here is Aramon. Very excited to finally see Aramon and kill Jaden in a Hearthstone expansion. It took 10 years, but they're here and I'm happy about it. He is a 7 mana 7/7 demon. He summons every demon you played this game that didn't start in your deck. And we're going to get some additional support for Boding Flame. 2 mana 2/3 demons that didn't start in your deck cost 1 less this game, which that's awesome. You get a couple of these down early, you're going to be cheating out some big demons early. The Relentless Wrathguard is a way to maybe discover a demon so that it's now discounted and gets resummoned off of your Aramons. And you got Black Hole here too for Warlock. Destroy all minions except demons. So very much leaning into the demon theme here with the spacefaring demons of the Great Dark Beyond. And I do like this. I think this alone wouldn't feel all that compelling like Aramon himself, but when you know you're going to be generating a lot of cheap demons and the generation is going to be paid off because of your Foreboding Flame, suddenly, you know, randomness is the downsides of randomness are kind of made up by the fact that you're playing them cheaper. Like, okay, I got some random stat pile that's not any good, but it's 1 or 2 mana cheaper. Like, oh crap, okay, suddenly this random, 5 mana 5/5 that wouldn't be all that great is now a 3 mana 5/5, and I'm pumped. And now it's coming back off of Aramon, and I'm pumped. And you can start to see this world where you just kind of overwhelm the opponent with discounted demons, just body after body after body, hopefully in time. Now, that said, it is a lot of setup. You're kind of playing Foreboding Flames. If you're playing something like this, like, yeah, it's got a little tempo reactivity, but not much. Does it come online fast enough to keep up with more of the aggressive game plans? And then Aramon himself, 7 mana play. We've seen these like big board swings happening on, say, turn 6 with Razzle Dazzler. Is Aramon gonna feel slower in comparison, or will you be able to get like big enough demons, or perhaps defensive demons, or maybe Doom Guards that are, of course, charging face, where this could be kind of a lethal type play? Those are the angles where Aramon starts to look a bit more interesting and intriguing. If it's just a bunch of random 5/5s, I don't know as a one-off like board builder if this is good enough or competitive enough with modern Hearthstone. Like Razzle Dazzler just beats Aramon in those cases because you spend a lot of time setting up and maybe just haven't got there yet. So that's my big hesitation for this package. Like, it might just come online a little too late, but if you find like big taunts or charge lines, I do think there's some hope. To give this card a little more detail, the Relentless Wrathguard, 3 mana 4/2 demon, deal 2 damage to an enemy minion, and if it dies, discover a demon. I'm really torn on this card. Like, that is a nice little swing. It's an SI7 agent style play, to cite a very old example. And we do know there's a lot of little stuff lingering in the Hearthstone meta these days, all the like 1/1 pirates and little tokens and so on. So there will be things that can clear, but that 2 health total on this means it's going to get swept right back up. And that means I think you are going to have to care about the demon side of it here. So it might be pretty limited to exactly a Foreboding Flame style deck. So is like a turn 2 Foreboding Flame into a turn 3 Relentless Wrathguard into like, I don't know, let's say you pick a 5-cost card and you play it on turn 4. Is that gonna be enough of a line to get going into the mid game where you hopefully do more of this same sort of stuff? I'm a little bit doubtful. I'm not convinced that's quite fast enough for Hearthstone today, but it's not terrible. It's not terrible. Oh, and then Black Hole, I think this is actually probably just a good card, a Twisting Nether style board clear. Obviously, if you're running demons, this gives you that little bit of a bonus, but sometimes you just play this on an empty board on 8 and your opponent doesn't have demons. The real question is like, if this kind of package becomes good and you see a lot of mirror matches, this does become a bit of a dead card. Maybe it gets cut in that case. Maybe it's still good enough against other matchups. Also, are there other demons that exist in other decks that discourage this, right? Like, oh man, like there's a couple random demons here and there, and suddenly your Black Hole does feel notably worse. All right, so moving over to Mage and some more Draenei cards here. We have the Archwing Pilot, a 7 mana 4/3 Draenei. At the end of your turn, deal 3 damage to a random enemy, which of course can go face. By the time you get to 7 mana, boy, that 3 is like kind of clunky. It's not gonna like resolve a lot of minions. There's gonna be bigger stuff, 5/5, 6/6s floating around at that stage. So yeah. That said, you have the spell burst here, summon an Archwing Pilot. And do note, that's going to be a new Archwing Pilot. It's not like a copy where its spell burst is already utilized or anything like that. It's a new one. So if you can chain the spell burst together, you can get like a full board of Archwing Pilots. So, you have some like 0 mana spells or whatever. And then 3 damage, like, oh, okay, that starts to add up. Right? You get 5 of these, suddenly it's 15 damage to the board. Some going face, some clearing minions. Like, that is actually pretty significant. Also note the Ingenious Artificer here, 5 mana 4/6 Draenei. Battlecry, the next Draenei you play refreshes mana crystals equal to its attack. So play this on turn 5 or 6 or whatever, and then you load into an Archwing Pilot. You're going to refresh 4 mana crystals, which is going to give you a lot of potential spell burst activations. So that's kind of scary, right? Like suddenly I have 4 mana to work with. I don't need 0 mana spells. 1 mana spells are fine. Maybe I got some 0 mana spells, but even 1 mana spells work fine. I got myself a board full of Archwing Pilots that's now like an on-board threat and also wiping out the opponent's board, or maybe just hitting face for like 12, 15 damage, whatever it might be. It is a bit of a downside, to play a 5 mana 4/6, but if you're trusting your swing enough here and you're not like super far behind in the game or almost dead, this can be a game-winning type of play, which is pretty cool. So that is definitely a consideration. Also, you know, we already saw Valen, so, you know, you could play this for 5 and then get a Valen that refreshes 7, and you got a Valen plus other stuff. Like, you're not just sitting there like a sitting duck with your Valen. You can, you know, play some reactive cards, board clear, whatever it is, and that could help ease out a Valen or something too for a Mage Draenei deck. So all in all, this little package honestly looks pretty nice. 5 mana 4/6 is tough, but the payoff might be so rapid and so significant from a mana saving standpoint that it does become worth it, especially with the Arcwing pilots. This looks pretty spooky. And then our final card for this video is not actually technically a Great Dark Beyond card. This is the Avatar of Hearthstone, which came out today. I think you just got to log in and play a game and you get this one. It's one of the kind of like bonus gift cards, sort of like the gifts of Thrall and gifts of Garrosh and all those we got before, kind of celebrating the anniversary or whatever. It's a 9 mana 5/5, and as Battlecry, open a standard pack, play all cards from it, which is a big like kind of value bomb, but man, is it a chaotic one, and man, can it just like summon a bunch of 1-drops and not do anything cool, right? Like, so many cards in Hearthstone these days are like synergistic, right? And they're all about how they work together. So anytime you get random stuff, because the standard pack's gonna have a bunch of random stuff in it, it's hard for each of those cards to sort of live up to their normal expectations because they're not existing in the context that makes them good. So random 3-drop, random 5-drop, random spell, it's very unlikely to actually do anything directed or good or beneficial for you other than just be a pile of value. So I'm excited to play with this. Looks like super fun. I want to put it in like Brand Warrior and just have some silly times today. I'm going to do that later tonight and hopefully get a video up soon. But from a like competitiveness standpoint, I just don't see how this is worth it. I haven't played it yet. Maybe people are having better results than I'm expecting, but ultimately this just feels like a pile of chaos that's not significant enough or reliable enough to actually be very good. Yeah, so all that said, let's go ahead and rate these cards from 1 to 5 stars. The Ceaseless Expanse is a 3-star card. Velen, Leader of the Exiled, is a 5-star card. Starlight Wanderer is a 3-star card. Dimensional Core is a 3-star card. Arcanite Defense Crystal is a 4-star card. Starlight Reactor is a 4-star card. Exarch Othar is a 4-star card. Distress Signal is a 3-star card. Nexus Prince Shafar is a 2-star card. Zortoth Breaker of Stars is a 3-star card. Aramon is a 3-star card. Foreboding Flame is a 3-star card. Relentless Wrathguard is a 3-star card. Black Hole is a 4-star card. Arcwing Pilot is a 4-star card. Ingenious Artificer is a 4-star card. Avatar of Hearthstone is a 2-star card. And yeah, there you go, man. That's the officially revealed cards for today. Again, you know, obviously more cards were technically sort of seen, but we're gonna save those and discuss those at length as they are officially revealed. Make sure we get the final versions, make sure there's no surprise changes, and again, kind of respect our fellow creators and so on. So that said, share your thoughts on these cards down below. I'm not going to try to prevent you guys from talking about cards if you've seen them, if you saw the, you know, the leaks and so on. Like if you want to reference a card that goes with, you know, Exarch Othar or whatever, or you know, Arcamond or whatever, feel free. That's fine. I've also seen them. I've tried to kind of subtly consider them in my reviews. It's not, you know, but in the future we'll be getting like full class dumps. So really only today will that be a consideration. Like, you know, we know some Warlock cards exist that we're not seeing here, but in the future we'll see like full classes, so it shouldn't be a problem moving on. So all that said, thanks for joining me. As always, stay tuned, hopefully for a video, maybe if I can get a cool deck going with like the new card Avatar of Hearthstone. Stay tuned for that, and more reviews, of course, as they land. So thank you, and until next time, game on.